Today we converse about what we ideally would like to polarize to in relation to our vision automatically via our ideal state of mind, which is stimulated by our desire. The premise of this conversation is actually a reflection upon this quote here from Sun Tzu, in which he states, "Opportunities multiply as they are seized." I still continue to study this quote because I recognize the parallel nature of reality. Everything is and isn't at the same time. You could look at things, and relating back to our last video, from the perspective of possibility, and you will find the possibilities to bring forth your vision in relation to identification with, or as we've been saying, what are we saying I am to? Saying I am to via our inner dialogue to possibilities in relation to bringing forth our vision. And we'll see reality from that perspective. If we heavily identify with the word impossible, what we could end up noticing is more validation in relation to the word impossible in regards to our vision. I posted on my Instagram, you can check out the post in the link in the description, the quote from the Kybalion, "Everything is and isn't at the same time." And I mentioned in there, in different states of mind, the eternal reality of now, because we learned from our Neville Goddard discussions that all things exist and all things exist now, stimulated by imagination, appear differently based on our state of mind. And the story that I shared was, over the years, my fascination with learning about people and environments, primarily through aspects of entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, and innovation, I realized this very profound aspect of how states of mind influence reality. For example, I would go to an event, and people would interact with me a certain way in that particular event. I would see reality from the perspective of my state of mind. And it would be an ideal state of mind or an internal locus of control based state of mind, in which I saw relatability with others as well as relatability with myself. Now, I would consciously leave this room, identify more with an external locus of control based state of mind, just to see what happens. And I would enter the room, and what I would notice is I would experience disconnect-based conversation and relation with the people in that room. This was very fascinating to me because it further helped me understand the idea that everything is and isn't at the same time. And what is revealed really is based on our state of mind. Now, Neville states, to change another within my world, I must first change my concept of that other. And to do it best, I change my concept of self. For it was the concept I held of self that made me see others as I did. Now, this brought forth a lot of realizations upon reflection of my experience and journey of learning NLP, communication, sales, marketing, leadership, the category of influential communication. During that time as well, I was also deep in study in one of the books that was referred to me called Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. This particular book spoke of different aspects in which we polarize ourselves to, which influence buying decisions. And later on the journey, I found the book, The Kybalion, which helped me understand the aspect of polarity in relation to the different elements that were discussed in Influence Psychology of Persuasion. And I recognize that we can more so every day release from some of the identifications which seems to bring us into an external locus of control. For example, he spoke of scarcity and authority. Now, he said, our typical reaction to scarcity hinders our ability to think. People seem to be more motivated by the thought of losing something than by the thought of gaining something of equal value. What we have found as a result of traversing into the depths of the unconscious through this work, the internal journey, is that there are beliefs, interpretations, perspectives revealed by our inner conversations, in which what we want to do is order our inner conversations to be one with the vision, as Neville Goddard states. For those who haven't heard what I say, you walk the tracks. You are standing forever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy. And from this energy, all things proceed. But they proceed according to pattern. Energy is moving in a certain pattern, and you determine the pattern that it takes for you actually lay down these tracks within you that energy flows over by the use of your inner conversations. This energy, I call it now mind, follows the tracks laid down in man's own inner talking. So if your inner conversations are not what they should be, I ask you today to start carrying on conversations within yourself from the premise of fulfilled ideals. So in relation to what we have learned from influence psychology of persuasion, if a person is overly identified with scarcity-based thinking in relation to people, environment, circumstance, spawned from a self-concept, a self-image from the perspective of excessive external locus of control, they may see reality from a scarcity perspective and might not understand the magnitude of the particular quote. Again, let's reflect upon it. Opportunities multiply as they are seized. Upon reflection and working with the Neville Goddard information, we realize that we first seize the opportunities in the mind by identifying more with an opportunistic state of mind or opportunity-based inner conversations and inner dialogue in relation to our vision. To further clarify this, let's look at the Robert Dilts logical levels here. On the top, we have vision, what we are imagining, what we want to identify with. And since Neville suggests that we change the self, as he states, causation is in the mind of the one who is self-persuaded, and there is no other cause, for the world is awareness pushed out, then we change this concept of ourself in relation to our vision, and what we notice is we bring forth the ideal capabilities, behaviors, and environments. We call this the bridge of incidents leading to the destination. On the entrepreneurial journey, we cultivate certain skills. We perform certain behaviors. We engage in certain environments, be it online, offline, mastermind groups. We deal with clients. Maybe we go to client sites. Maybe we deal with clients online. These represent the environments. Our behaviors would be really, if a person observes their behaviors and they would say, this is in alignment and ideal with the identity that's one with the vision. For example, as I had mentioned, one of the things that was brought forth upon working with the information that I had learned from Think and Grow Rich was through the autosuggestion principle, which is related to ordering the inner conversations and working with the power of the subconscious mind by revealing the aspects of what I was polarizing to, changing my relationship to those aspects by ordering my inner conversations aright. What I noticed was I would automatically perform ideally in my behaviors more so each day. I would also find more peace, love, and harmony with the environment and those that were in the environment and the information and so forth. All of this was identifying more so with the internal locus of control, which we've been discussing, which is, number one, to take responsibility for our reality and recognize that we are the ones stimulating our own subconscious mind based on our own interpretations consciously, allowing certain interpretations to go in and impress the subconscious mind and express accordingly as certain behaviors, environments, etc. Once we take responsibility for what goes into our subconscious mind, we then begin to order our conversations to be more accurate and in harmony with the vision. Thus, it helps us further understand another principle from Robert Cialdini's influence to help us maintain an internal locus of control, which is approval from perceived authority. Robert Cialdini says, once we realize that obedience to authority is mostly rewarding, it is easy to allow ourselves the convenience of automatic obedience. Upon reflection of this quote here, and in relation to what we are looking to achieve, which is a higher degree of internal locus of control, to align more with the word possibility in relation to opportunities, we realize that this authority is something that we are perceiving based on our programming within. Pre-associated programming that was integrated with at an earlier stage of our journey seems to automatically bring forth a translation that the information that we are consuming from what we perceive as authoritative is relevant, even though we know that it is not in harmony with our true inner voice and intuition in relation to our vision. We want to identify that we are the ones interpreting, a lot of times unconsciously, this aspect of reality in which we identify it with automatic responses, which causes us to believe certain information from a disempowering or limiting perspective. This is called also, and I suggest further integrating this in your subconscious mind work, releasing from dogmatic thinking. Dogmatic thinking is this idea that because something in the external says that reality works a certain way, we shouldn't question it, but rather accept it as a truth. The reality is that what is true to your vision is what we're looking to identify with more so to bring forth your vision, while keeping into regard that there are many different assumptions, many different beliefs, many different perspectives. And while one idea might be true for one aspect of reality, it may not be true for another aspect of reality. This is why what we want to do is we want to learn to trust ourselves more. And so I suggest then audio affirmations or self-talk or inner conversations. And when I suggest this kind of information, this may conjure up certain thinking, such as, but what if I don't trust myself? What if the authority or the authoritative source of information based on perception seems smarter than me? What if many, through another principle of Robert Cialdini, social proof, believe this authoritative source of information based on perception? What we're looking for is the nuanced perspective, and this is why we study polarity, what we are polarizing to, an aspect on a scale, and identify with the true perspective which is found within accurate thinking, related over to your intuitive understanding, the inner voice, so that we can discern what is true and in harmony for you on the journey to realizing your vision. And so, thus, perhaps some inner conversation or audio affirmations that can be created can be as follows. I realize that I have a greater ability to trust myself more so every day. Through the process, I realize the wisdom and understanding that is inherent within me. I'm able to accurately discern from the information that is presented from perceived authority, find the true understanding in harmony with my vision, identify with it, say I am to that true information, and move forward towards my vision in a flow-based way. I realize that there are many nuanced perspectives in relation to what is being presented to me via information. I recognize that I am able to find each day with a greater ability as I level up my awareness, the nuanced distinction within myself, which allows me to trust myself. From this perspective and in this direction, I maintain a lighthearted presence, unwavering lighthearted conviction on the journey to realizing my vision, while purifying the mind of limiting, doubt-based, uncertainty-related elements and thinking, perspectives, associations, assumptions, and paradigms that seem to create unnecessary friction in my relationship with my higher self, which guides the way to bring forth my vision. The answers are found within, and I recognize that this also is representative of the meek man. As it is revealed in the Bible, the meek shall inherit the earth. Thus I represent the meek man, which is the self-disciplined man, who sees only the finest and only the best. This allows me to reestablish the connection to the inner voice within, and I'm guided to accurate discernment and understanding on the different aspects of the journey to realizing my vision. As we go deeper into this element of the accurate and ideal authority within, which Neville had shared with us through a lecture called Blessed Are the Meek, we realize that this understanding is one with the golden rule of love that removes any self-imposed fetters in the mind that unnecessarily bind us to external, perceived authority-based notions, not overly influenced by opinions. Information that is presented to us, we are the ones who are interpreting that information within. And we want to interpret that information in relation to our vision. Because if we interpret what shows up as far as information goes on the journey from the perspective of scarcity or needing approval, then we might be allowing ourselves to sway in a direction that is not in harmony and in contribution to our vision. And what we want to do is rather recognize this internal dialogue and change the thinking, the inner conversations around. We order the inner conversations to be more with the vision. For example, a person might say, I recognize that I find happiness, joy, fulfillment, and everything in the world within. The world within externalizes as the different opportunities which I'm then able to find myself seizing to bring forth my vision. Upon reflection of working with this kind of internal dialogue, we find that the scarcity programming is released from consciousness, which is very important here, the unnecessary excluded out of consciousness. We find ourselves automatically focusing attention on what we want, and in this case specifically, in harmony and in contribution to our vision. And through this process of applying the conscious ordering of the inner conversations in relation to what shows up on our journey, we're able to maintain the ideal state of mind, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, from the perspective of internal locus of control, and thus we're not swayed by what appears as challenge, knowing that we are the ones creating the interpretation within in regards to the challenge. So the ordering of the inner conversation is to order the accurate values and beliefs in relation to the identity and in relation to the vision that brings forth the ideal capabilities, behaviors, and environment. And all of this is causation in the mind, as he states, causation is in the mind of the one who is self-persuaded, and there is no other cause, for the world is awareness pushed out. This inner confidence, this inner self-persuasion that is one with the vision, is reflected as certain kinds of behaviors that won't be at the whim of being reactive to scarcity-based interpretations in relation to different aspects of reality. Same is to be said about scarcity-based perceived notions of what information is authoritative if it doesn't seem to align with the internal truth in relation to your vision. So I had learned this from watching the Steve Jobs commencement speech over and over again. And prior to getting into entrepreneurship, it was something that I would study, and I would watch it in the earlier stages over and over again, because he suggested in there, don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. What he is also implying is that this internal inner voice is the voice of discernment, which allows you to find what information is true and in harmony with your vision, rather than identifying with certain information based on internal concept of self related to scarcity and perceived authority in the external that seems to play out as believing certain information that is not in harmony with the vision. Very important to understand this. As we release from this kind of internal programming using the subconscious mind work of, for example, self-talk, audio affirmation, environment, or revision, and I'll put a link in the description to a video that I've discussed this a while back. And as we release from working with this kind of information from the perspective of subconscious, unconscious programming, working with modalities, And these modalities are the ones that I've worked with that have worked tremendously to integrate the level of concept of self, the ideal concept of self, and continue to do so. And you may find your own, which brings up an important reflection that I would like to discuss. The inner conversation stimulated by certain kinds of experiences, and the experiences Robert Cialdini refers to here is perceived authority and perceived scarcity. Now, a lot of us might not want to identify with having certain stimulus like this bring forth certain inner conversations, which seem to encourage scarcity and perceived authority in the external. What I had learned from Think and Grow Rich is to write down your definite chief aim on a card. And if you find yourself thinking from the perspective of scarcity or interpreting reality from the perspective of that the authority is without, rather than the inner voice of authenticity and authority within, then you can pick up your definite chief aim card and read it and go back onto the track into the aspect of reality that is representative of the opportunities as a result of seizing it in your mind, starting with the internal dialogue that is one with the vision based on your identity. As he states, this energy, I call it now mind, follows the tracks laid down in a man's own inner talking. So if your inner conversations are not what they should be, I ask you today to start carrying on conversations within yourself from the premise of fulfilled ideals, which is your vision, your goals, what you desire to see brought forth. This is what we identify with in our mind and stimulate certain states of mind in which we enter into and experience reality from those perspectives. Just as, for example, I brought up the story of how I intentionally changed different states of mind to see what would happen in my interactions with the people. I also notice that many of us can benefit from not being reactive to things like scarcity or believing that power is external to us, perceived authority, which by encouraging these kinds of interpretations could allow us to fall into different states of mind in which we experience reality from those perspectives. So by changing the internal relationship, our thinking, ordering the inner conversations to our vision in relation to the different aspects of the journey, watch the last few videos I did on the principle of polarity to identify what you are polarizing to, and releasing from the unconscious polarization to aspects of reality in which we form certain interpretations within and thus imagine things from a certain perspective, enter into those states of mind from a place of reactivity and experience reality from those perspectives. By changing our relationship to those attributes, we find ourselves no longer polarizing to those attributes from those perspectives, and as a result, maintaining the ideal state of mind that is in harmony and in contribution to our vision and experiencing a more flow-based journey, which is with our vision, assuming the ideal identity in relation to the state of the wish fulfilled, bringing forth the ideal values and beliefs, capabilities, behaviors, and environments to reflect our vision. So let's go ahead and conclude this with an affirmation to further stimulate this understanding, further integrate it so that we can experience more love, harmony, flow, peace internally, thus reflected accordingly externally in the track that is ideal and in contribution to our vision from the perspective of flow. We can say, I recognize that I have the ability to select the track that I walk down in relation to my vision from the perspective of my state of mind. I'm able to stimulate my state of mind based on my internal dialogue and internal conversation that is in harmony and in contribution to my vision. I find myself easily being able to maintain this pattern within, which translates the pattern that I take as I continue down the track to bring forth my vision, recognizing that energy flows over by the use of my inner conversations. Mind follows the tracks laid down via my own inner talking. And as a result, I adjust my inner conversations to be in ideal with the premise of fulfilled ideals from the perspective of love, flow, and spirit of harmony with all. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.